If you have $0 in your bank account right now, the bank algorithm has already flagged you as a massive liability. Here is what happens at every dollar amount, and it gets dark at 1 million. In his 2011 book, Debt, The First 5,000 Years, David Graeber describes a terrified Sumerian farmer standing before a stone temple at sunset. The farmer hands his final clay jar of grain to a silent scribe, chiseling a wet clay tablet.
The scribe does not look at the tired farmer or ask a single question about his starving family. He carves a permanent debt mark into the heavy clay. The temple operates on a cold mathematical formula that punishes a temporary lack of resources with a massive demand for more resources. The farmer walks away with zero, knowing the heavy debt will compound in the dark before the next harvest cycle even begins in the dry dirt.
When your modern balance drops near zero, the banking algorithm classifies you the same as the starving ancient farmer. You enter the parasite zone. The bank does not view a low balance as a temporary human struggle requiring assistance. They view it as a mathematical trigger to extract aggressive financial penalties. They charge a monthly maintenance fee just for being poor. They punish you for lacking money by taking whatever tiny scraps remain in your digital account.
You stood at the gas pump on a cold Tuesday morning and checked your phone screen. Your balance showed $4. A pending automatic payment cleared while the heavy metal nozzle was resting in your tired hand. The screen flashed bright red with a massive $30 overdraft charge. You lost a full day of biological wages because your account was empty before the sun even came up. Poverty is a lucrative corporate commodity. Siphoning tiny wages from the bottom keeps the lights on, but true massive growth requires a machine that feeds on your future sweat. In his 2017 book, A History of the United States in 5 Crashes, Scott Nations observes a slick salesman in a crowded 1920s department store. The salesman watches a tired factory worker stare at an expensive wooden radio. The worker turns away with empty pockets. The salesman stops him and offers a formal paper contract. The paper is a brilliant new financial invention called the modern installment plan. The factory worker signs his heavy name and takes the heavy radio home that same afternoon. He feels a rush of absolute pride as he turns the dial in his quiet living room. He does not understand the brutal compound math written on the contract. He just sold a massive percentage of his future biological energy for a fragile wooden box that will break soon. When your bank account holds a few $1,000s, the algorithm upgrades your digital profile. You escape the penalty fees and enter the compliant yield zone. The bank spots your reliable surplus and sends bright offers for massive credit lines. They calculate the exact limits of your physical endurance. They want you holding a rolling balance that pays heavy interest for decades without pushing you into total bankruptcy. They want you pulling the heavy plow.
You sat in a bright, sterile car dealership last year and signed a digital screen to finance a heavy metal vehicle. You drove off the massive lot feeling an immense sense of personal achievement and social arrival. The bank approved the massive loan because they know you will drag yourself to work every single morning just to make that heavy monthly payment. You handed them the steering wheel of your life. Debt masquerades as middle-class success. Capturing the middle class provides a steady foundation, but securing real massive liquidity requires convincing the prey they are the predator. In his 1989 book, Liar's Poker, Michael Lewis describes a young bond trader sitting at a loud desk in a massive New York tower. The trader holds a heavy block of worthless financial garbage. He picks up the telephone and calls a regional bank manager operating in a quiet, small town far away from the city. The young trader speaks with absolute charm and uses complex financial vocabulary to project ultimate authority. The regional manager buys the garbage bonds because he trusts the smooth voice on the other end of the line. He wants to feel like he belongs in the fast lanes of high finance. The trader hangs up the heavy phone
and laughs at the easy victory. He transferred his massive problem to a willing victim in a few short seconds.
When your balance crosses tens of thousands of dollars, the bank assigns you a personal relationship manager. This friendly person is not a financial genius trying to make you rich. They are a trained salesperson deployed to capture your sleeping cash. They offer you warm coffee and push you into proprietary mutual funds loaded with invisible fees. They skim a heavy percentage off the top every single year, while your principal balance remains stagnant in the dark.
You walked into the private glass office at your local branch and accepted a cold bottle of water. The man in the sharp suit showed you complex, colorful charts and promised massive future yields. You signed the heavy paperwork and moved your hard-earned savings into their specific market vehicle. You thought you bought a guaranteed map to absolute financial freedom? You bought a very expensive ticket to a treadmill. Advice is a beautiful, disguised trap. Skimming yields off the top generates massive quarterly revenue, but securing total lifetime loyalty requires a different psychological environment. In his 1974 book, The Bankers, Martin Mayer details the quiet strategy sessions inside the highest executive boardrooms. The banking executives sketch designs for a new tier of exclusive credit cards. They choose dark, sleek colors and heavy metal materials. They know the human ego craves a physical object that signals arrival to the massive anonymous crowd outside. The top executives understand that the aspiring rich want to feel different from the ordinary people waiting in the noisy lobby. They manufacture a fake sense of ultimate exclusivity to capture your entire financial footprint. They offer premium phone lines and free safe deposit boxes. They wrap the same basic financial traps in expensive velvet packaging. They feed your fragile vanity to ensure you bring your massive mortgage and heavy retirement accounts under their large roof. When you cross into the hundreds of thousands, the bank changes the color of your digital interface to a sleek, dark black. They send you a heavy metal debit card that makes a satisfying sound when you drop it on a table. They want you feeling special to guarantee you never look for the exits. You think you entered the absolute elite circle. The true elite laugh at the metal card because you are still the prey.
You sat at a crowded, expensive restaurant table on a Friday night and dropped your heavy metal card on the dark wood. The metal made a sharp, distinct sound. You wanted the anonymous strangers around you to hear that sound and recognize your financial arrival. You paid the massive bill and walked to your car feeling powerful. You are still paying heavy income taxes like everyone else in the room. Status blinds the captured retail prey. The velvet handcuffs keep the aspiring rich docile, but the rules rewrite themselves when the real money enters the private room. In his 2011 book, The Spider's Web, Nicholas Shaxson observes a wealth manager sitting in a silent, unmarked office in London. The manager slides a thin paper folder across the dark desk to a quiet client. The folder contains the complex legal structure for an offshore trust holding millions of dollars in physical, tangible assets.
The complex paper structure builds an invisible wall between the rich man and his own money. The trust officially owns the massive estate, the luxury vehicles, and the heavy stock portfolio. Because the man owns zero on paper, the massive tax collector cannot touch him. The wealth manager smiles and closes the paper folder. He just designed a flawless shield that allows the client to move through the world with absolute power and zero financial friction.
When your liquid wealth crosses into the millions, you leave the retail bank and enter the silent private vault. They teach you to never spend your own cash again. When you want a luxury property, they give you a massive loan backed by your stock portfolio at a fraction of a %. The borrowed money is tax-free. Your stocks continue to grow. and pay the tiny interest. The heavy game changes behind the solid door.
You read a news article on your phone last month about a massive billionaire paying zero in taxes for an entire decade. You assumed it was a political error or a massive loophole that the government missed. It is not an error. The private banking machine facilitates the massive loans that allow the elite to buy heavy physical assets without triggering a single tax event. The vault protects the invisible masters.
The algorithm graded your human life before you ever walked through the heavy glass doors. They designed the brutal fees to crush the weak and the shiny metal cards to sedate the strong. The architecture relies on your absolute belief that the bank is a safe harbor rather than an efficient extraction machine. If you learn to hold hard assets outside their digital servers, the algorithm loses its tight grip on your finite human future.
The historical operators shared their hidden knowledge only with those who came looking in the deep dark. Something on this screen is the modern version of that act of seeking. Every massive financial outcome in your life followed from one decision made without full information. The extraction mechanism operates in plain sight, waiting for the heavy crowd to look past the polished marble pillars of the lobby. You stand on the seeing side.